I will never get tired of that. I'm just gonna go on the record. That's the best. Um, so, welcome everybody. Thanks for joining us. This is the Reclaim team, like in full. That's pretty awesome. And we're here on a Friday morning or afternoon, depending upon where you are, or evening. Right? We're kind of we're kind of agnostic in terms of time, right? It is a construct I learned this week. But I do want to say that we're here to talk. We're here for the Reclaim Rewind 2024, which is a kind of event that we put on this month just to kind of take some time to reflect back on what the year has been for us as a group and what we've done, some of the highlights, some of the projects, some of the ideas that have kind of fueled us and excited us, and hopefully kind of will carry on for the years to come. So that's basically what this session will be about. It will probably run between 45 minutes and an hour if we can keep ourselves under control. And but I don't know if we can. That's a big if. And hopefully everybody here at the Reclaim team will join in. They've put me up as, the kind of pretty face with a bandage, but it won't last. You'll realize who the true geniuses of this team are very soon. So anyway, I don't know if you want me to stop or start with some of my ideas of what, or should we push it around? Like, I am up for that. But if I start, I may not stop for 45 minutes. There's that risk. So maybe I'll hand it off to someone else.
We can introduce ourselves because I think we have some new faces in the stream.
And we
Wonderful
should
idea.
mention too, we are missing Chris, so we're not completely here today, but Chris is off on Fridays normally.
So yeah, so as you can see already, right? It's a quick correction booth. Okay, so let's start. I'm Jim Groom. I work at Reclaim Hosting, and I'm going to push it over to you, Marin.
Hi, I'm Maren Deepwell, and I get to moonlight here with the Reclaim team and hopefully tell you a little bit more about the Rewind series of events we have planned this month. Pilot, over to you.
Yeah, I'm Pilot. I'm happy to be here. I'm not really sure what else to add.
Cool.
Yeah, that's kind of. It's a Friday morning.
Hand it
Having a
off
good
to
time.
somebody.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Well, sure. That too. Taylor, you're next on my screen.
Sure. I'm Taylor, and I'm also happy to be here. If this is your first Reclaim TV, um, I work here at Reclaim Hosting, and we all wear a lot of hats. But you'll find many of us on past Reclaim TV things if you want to check it out. I'll hand it off to Noah. No, Noah's that way.
I'm on that way from my screen too. Hey, I'm Noah. I work at Reclaim as well, obviously. I'm a security administrator here, and that means I'm pretty much afraid all the time. So that's me.
Professionally paranoid.
And I'll go to Meredith next. Almost forgot.
That's okay, no worries. I feel like we're the Brady Bunch with the way the intro screen is. I'm Meredith. I'm the customer success manager here at Reclaim, so you've probably seen my name on support. I've also been in a lot of streams as well, so definitely check out our archive of previous streams to catch up on all things Reclaim. And super excited to do the Reclaim Rewind this year and go through all of the 2024 goodness we've had this year. And I'll pass it below me to Jason.
Hi, all. I'm Jason, and I am also happy to be here. It's a nice Friday morning, so nice to be able to spend a little time with the full team. And I'm one of the customer support specialists here, so if you have any issues or questions, I'll likely be one of the people helping you out. And passing it over to Justin.
I'm Justin. I'm Jim's personal assistant, picking up laundry and doing whatever chores he has for me. Excited to be here for kind of the first wrap up for my first year here at Reclaim. Over to Cass.
I'm Cass, and this is my first stream, so I'm fairly new here to the team. I am escalated support specialist, so you'll see me a lot on tickets and such, especially if your issue gets to be quite interesting. I'm also a junior sysadmin, so do a lot of that kind of stuff. And I guess I'm rounding it out.
Thanks, Cass. Well, before we jump in and start to reflect, just to give you a little bit of an idea of what we're talking about, we have put together like a little intro, and I always wanted to say this. Jim Groom, next slide, please. Who gets to do that? So, as we mentioned, this is a whole series of events. We've named Reclaims Rewind 2024, and it's really us getting together as a community, kicking off here with most of Team Reclaim all in one place for a change, to really celebrate our community, the collaborations that have happened over the last year, and to really, put our money where our mouth is, if you like, and champion our continued commitment to advocating for the open web in higher education. So we have a whole host of things planned. And this one, as Jim was already saying, starts with a bit of reflection where we want to share some of the things that we've, worked on with you, our community, over the past year. But before we jump into that, I did want to give one more shout out to an event that's coming up in just a week's time, because you're not just going to hear from us here at Reclaim on our own for the month. And Jim, if you can find the slide that has the case study bonanza on, let's give that a little bit of a shout out as well. So this is today, the rewind with the whole team. And then on the next slide should be the case study bonanza. That's it. Perfect. So this is in store for you in just a week's time, where we're bringing together some wonderful innovators from the whole year that we've worked with, sharing a couple of different case studies and really highlighting some of the amazing work that we've been doing all across the sector this year. So I think that wraps up our intro now, and hopefully you get a bit of a flavor for what's in store. But do head over to events.reclaimhosting.com if you want to sign up. The events are all free and everybody is welcome. Okay, so that wraps up the intro. So Jim, I think we're going to put you on the spot to go first and jump in with a highlight, and then everybody is going to follow that lead.
Muted.
Muted in Jitsi. I guess one low light for me was my introduction to this session. But I do have highlights. And my highlights are Reclaim EDU. So one of the highlights that I blogged about recently, I don't know if you know, I have a blog. It's babatuesdays.com. I don't know if you blogged today, but I might have already. So I just want to point that out. And if you haven't, why haven't you? Blog or die for life. So basically, I blogged about the idea of this setup we have at Reclaim that I'm really proud of, called WordPress multi-region, which is essentially our ability to host two distinct WordPress instances across two geographical spaces. So we'll have one on the East Coast, one on the West Coast, one in Canada, one in the UK, one in Europe, etc. So we can do it in any two data centers, which allows for instant failover. Should there be an issue on one data center, everything goes to the other. It's a super cool, super technical setup. And we did this for last year for Trinity College and for Macalester College. And I've been working with the team recently. And so after we did that, we said, look, this is a really good offering. And so we kind of came up with Reclaim EDU, and we got really cool art from Brian Mathers, which kind of shows how the whole thing works. And so I kind of have had a lot of fun this year because Lauren and Chris, who's not here, you're right, and who I kind of overlooked, and I'm sorry, Chris, did a lot of the work in 2022, which I talk about in my post, to get this whole thing set up for Macalester and Trinity. And that was like winter of 22 to spring of 23. And we're now in another cycle of that with the team now, where Taylor, myself, Pilot, and Chris are going through another version where we're doing more complexity for two different schools. So I really like that. That's a highlight for me because I really like when Reclaim digs in on a new setup and kind of builds something. And we're kind of building a very cool solution for schools that need it, with really kind of, I would say critical infrastructure for their teaching and learning. And that's a really cool element to see that we can do it. And I learned a ton about things that I never really thought I wanted to learn about, like S3, AWS, Cloudflare. and it's kind of really cool. So that has been a great highlight for me this year, is our Reclaim EDU and what we can do with it, and the fact that we can really honestly host critical infrastructure in a really powerful way. And that gives me great joy. So I would say, Marin, that was a great highlight for me of 2023 and 2024, and now definitely into 2025. So this is kind of a multi-year project we've been doing, and that makes it even more rewarding, because I wrote about it in the post, like the first time I blogged about it was 3 years ago. And it's still a kind of, after 11, 12 posts, it still very much excites me and makes me think, oh, wow, this is cool stuff that we're doing with cool people across the community. So I love that project.
Kind of adding on to that, Jim, one of my favorite things about, because this is one of the first these multi-region setups that I've been like part of in some way, and it's been really exciting for me to kind of see how the rubber meets the road on these things, and in terms of how partnering with folks works and the types of questions they ask and how we go about problem solving. And I think one of my favorite things, and I feel like this is a really reclaimy way to do this, is like, you know, this multi-region fancy distributed hosting stuff. There are you know, companies that do that and kind of sell a product or a product solution combo to folks. And one of my favorite things at Reclaim is that we get to not do that as much, and we get to sell a solution and say, like, hey, this is what you should be doing for this type of thing, and we're going to help you navigate it and find the right combination of tools for you that's going to make this work. We're not here because we're here to resell you company A's solution. We can do this multiple ways. Here's what we recommend. And it feels kind of like an extension of what we do, even all the way down to shared hosting, right? Like, of in terms of, you know, complexity of like, hey, let's try and get you what you need in a way where you can understand the bits and how they work as far as you want to.
I love that, Taylor, and I'll tell you why. Is because, you know, when we work with the folks that we're working with now, like Boone Gorgas, who's out of CUNY, and Matt Gold, and a whole bunch of solid gold folks, like, these are people who have done this for years and who have as much to teach us and tell us about how their project working and what they need as what we can on the hosting side. And it's very rewarding when you work with such talented people who can make our whole team better. Right. And so, like, that's the thing, like, you know, it's not just like we're coming in always as like, we have every solution for you ever imagined and we can do it all. But it's like, no, but we'll be alongside you thinking it through and working it out. And, you know, when you need the work done, you need it done on time, and you need it done creatively and thoughtfully. That's what we got. And then on the other side, we work with really creative and thoughtful people too. So it's kind of like a win-win, because these people are invested in their projects. So yeah, it just beautifully said. I think I could talk about this for an hour, so I'll stop.
Well, let's try and get some of the folks who haven't had the chance to say anything yet to come in and join in. And one of the other pieces of work that I think we wanted to celebrate was the TX ramp. So I think Noah and Justin might speak to that. So yeah, jump in, guys.
I guess I'll tee it up in that as we deal with a lot of different institutions worldwide, they have different expectations in terms of security, rigor, protection of our environment. And one of the things that came up a couple of years ago was just working with the state of Texas. They've certainly raised the bar in terms of expectations and have a standard in place that aligns somewhat to FedRAMP or state ramp standards. This became a requirement to do business with the state of Texas. I want to say probably sometime around 2021, 22. We became aware of it and put a project in place to start working toward it, but that really gained momentum last year and earlier this year. And Noah really did a great job in leading the charge and establishing documentation, policies, processes, and the underlying security controls that were missing in a lot of these areas. And so, you know, it was a lot of work. I think a lot of weekends, a lot of long nights. So no small feat. but it really does position us a lot better, not just in working with the state of Texas, but for other security and process expectations that similar clients have. So Noah, I don't know if you want to talk us through maybe how you approached it, what your experience was leading into this, how you'd done some similar things, and certainly a lot of this was kind of net new.
Sure. Yeah. TX-Ramp was a massive project. So from the beginning, I knew it was going to have to take a pretty big project management approach to just get that planned out and ready so that people could understand, one, what they needed to do and where it needed to go and how things connected, which I'm still not sure I did a great job of, but it worked at least. So TX-Ramp in its kind of core is based on the NIST, or the National Institute of Standards and Technology, Special Publication 853, Revision 5, which is a mouthful. But it's basically just a list of standards and guidelines that will help your cybersecurity infrastructure, or just your infrastructure in general, really. Things like access control and things like that are just how do we control this in a way that can be followed continuously and regularly without special setups. Because a lot of times in a security environment, you'll find yourself doing one-off things, and you want to try to avoid that as much as possible, which is where NIST comes in. So how I kind of started, just to not to become too technical and take up all the time, but how I started was to kind of do like a waterfall plan and just take all these standards and controls, which are grouped into things like access control, like I mentioned before, and just plan out how we would follow these. They actually have a really great list of templates from the state ramp agency that if you're looking to do this in your organization, that is a really, really useful tool. I don't have like a link or anything, but if you just Google state ramp templates, they'll be like the first one. They're really, really cool. Once you get past the stage of planning, it moves into development, and that's just writing a lot of documentation, a lot of guidelines, a lot of policies, a lot of procedures, a bit more of the managerial controls from security and a lot less of the technical controls than you would be surprised. Because with security, I think a lot of people think it's, deploy an AV scanner, put in a firewall, stuff like that, which is true. That's definitely true. But a large chunk of it are these core controls that a team can follow, incident response playbooks, how you handle password policies, all this other stuff that can't be done by technology, or at least if it can be done by technology, it has to have a basis to fall back on. So that's TX-Ramp, is that basis to fall back on. And I think I'm rambling at this point, honestly, but it's a very, very cool project. It's very large, and not only will it help with our clients in the state of Texas to meet their standards, but it'll help overall by providing us a very, very good foundation for our infrastructure, both security and in general, to fall back on no matter what, and it helps us protect our customers.
That's awesome. Thank you so much, Noah. And I think one of the things lots of people don't ever see is all those stuff that's happening behind the scenes that you really only notice if anything goes wrong. And I think Meredith is going to jump in a minute to talk a bit more about some of the external engagements that the team this year has been part of. But before we do that, I wanted to give a big shout out to both Cass and Jason, who are, not frequent visitors here on Reclaim TV. And we're very lucky to have both of them with us because they are part of the growing support team that makes it all happen behind the scenes. So, we vlogged yesterday sharing some of the amazing feedback that we've gotten from clients all year long for the amazing support that they all provide. So Cass, Jason, if you want to give a quick shout out and say hello to folk who probably only will ever meet you via email otherwise, that would be awesome. Cass, do you want to go first?
Oh, Cass, go
Or
ahead.
Jason, you jump in.
Oh, sure. Yeah, I was listening to everybody talk, and I was thinking, I was like, I don't get to do all the cool big projects most of the time, but I'm so appreciative for it because I see them happening and then everything just works. And I'm kind of like a customer in that regard where it's like, oh man, everything just works better now. So, this year had like tons of upgrade, moving servers, server replacements, migrations, the WH MCS upgrade, just kind of all these things that happened behind the scenes, and just watching it all happen, being involved kind of peripherally at points, and just kind of helping with the communication to the customers, just seeing the way it all worked. It's exciting to see it all happening and watching and learning. I think I learn a little bit more every week as something new happens, and I kind of get pulled into a different project. I just, it's a constant learning process. And so that's been exciting for me as part of the support team to kind of learn as we go and see how things develop. So I just want to say thank you to all of you for making my job easier, because everything runs so smoothly and nicely here. And it's been a pleasure getting to know kind of the customer base. Having been in my last job for so long, I was really familiar with all the clients. I kind of, it was like there were people I knew. And so coming into this, I kind of had to relearn that and meet new people. But I'm starting to, form those same relationships with our customers at the shared hosting at the university level. So it's nice to kind of get to know the customers and kind of build that rapport and start to kind of, build that Reclaim family feel here as well. So just, thank you for everybody. It's been a good year. I'm excited for another one ahead. Cass, pass it over to you.
Thanks, Jason. Yeah, I completely agree with Jason on that. It definitely makes things a lot easier on the support front when things are working. And upgrades are definitely a big part of that. Definitely enjoyed the Reclaim family feel for sure. As well, just being able to work on the tickets and being able to communicate between, the technical side and the customer is something I really very much enjoy doing. So getting to be able to do that is honestly fantastic for me. And it makes things better, right? Because you can definitely communicate between the two, and there's not always that in a lot of companies. I've worked for quite a few hosting companies, and sometimes there's a break somewhere in there, and so there's not that break at this company. And working with this group and with these customers, there's a lot of communication that's very clear, and it's something I've really enjoyed about this. So
Awesome. Thank you both. And it's great to hear from you. And thank you for taking the time out of what is no doubt another very busy day behind the scenes. Meredith, did you want to jump in now and tell us a little bit about, I know you have a big role in support, of course, as well. What did you want to share?
Yeah. Another shout out to Jason and Cass. It's been awesome working to bring them up to speed on everything Reclaim. And we've all had a hand in it on the team to get them acclimated in all of the support needs. But I wanted to talk about our in-person events that we've attended as Reclaim and our presence on the ground, starting with OER 24 back in March. Marin and I presented on Reclaim Press and edtech and that sort of thing within Ireland. We were in Cork for the week, and that was a lot of fun. And then fast forward to July, so we weren't in person for a couple of months for conferences, but Jim and I attended WP Campus and DH 2024 to talk all things WordPress, and we did a panel on the outsourcing or not outsourcing web hosting for your school with some folks we've already talked about. We had Boom Gorges on, and I should have prepared just a little bit more. My caffeine hasn't hit yet today.
Yeah, Trinity College too.
Yeah.
So that was a lot of fun. And it was interesting too, because one of the things we learned at WP Campus, like it was just setting the scene. It was Washington, D.C. It was July. It was 130 degrees. It was humid, all of that. But people came together at Georgetown, and me and Meredith kind of set up our booth, and we were there next to Bluehost and, Pandora, whatever it is. Is it Pandora? It's like Pantheon. Yes, and actually a human made. And so we got on a panel discussion, and come to find out, like Bluehost and all the other hosts were at the panel, and talking to the person who was running Bluehost, or one of the big kind of infrastructure people, they were like, yeah, we're working on this multi-region setup for failover that, we're working with WP, WordPress hosting to do it. And I'm like, yeah, this whole badass group has been doing that for a couple of years now. And I was like, kind of like feeling a little bit of like hubris, right, Meredith? Like, yeah, we could do this.
Yeah, we can keep up with the big dogs.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. And DH 2024 was all things digital humanities, which was super cool. That was my first time in person for that one. It was at the George Mason University campus in DC. Big conference with virtual and in-person events. We got to see a lot of folks from our community, hear a lot of stories from them that we've turned into streams and case studies. And it was just a great way to kind of connect with the community on that side. And then Taylor and Pilot took to Providence, Rhode Island for Open Ed 2024.
Yeah, I can maybe hop in a little bit on that. I was really jealous of Jim and Meredith for getting to go to DH 2024, and then I got to go to Open Ed, and I was like, actually, this is fine. I'm happy with this. This is great. I had a really good time. Providence is not that far from me, so it was also an easy trip, which I think was balanced out by what Taylor had to go through as far as flight timing. But it was really lovely time. It was a beautiful town, and we got to meet just like tons of people, some of whom we met sort of, people we've worked with before, meeting in person for the first time, and some of whom we were just meeting for the first time. And it was really cool. Every single panel that I went to or session that I went to was so much fun. And I feel like I'm saying the same thing over and over again, but it just keeps being true. And also it was just good to meet up with Taylor in person. I don't get to do that very often. And also we presented. That also happened. I think our session was probably pretty good as well. But yeah, we talked a little bit about the ways that Reclaim tries to meet people online. This feels like a weird way to put it, but
build community.
Build community. That's a better way of putting it. Like Meredith, I'm a little out of it this morning. But getting to build community in open social spaces, prioritizing openness when we're building community online.
It was a fun presentation because we've been exploring these things for a couple years now, different alternative social spaces, Fediverse stuff like Mastodon, things like that. And when we were kind of we've given versions of this talk. We did a conference early in the year. We've been talking about this stuff for years with Marin too. And when Pilot and I were kind of sitting down for this, for Open Ed, we were kind of trying to, hey, how do we, make this relevant? What are we going to talk about differently? And we realized that the message we had this time was, we're in all these spaces because we want you to come back to the space that we control and can put the most time and love and attention to, which is our blog. So it was really fun to dress up Blog or Die into a different presentation and sneak that Trojan horse in a lot of ways. And say, hey, you came to a thing titled Exploring Open Social Spaces, but our real advice is you should be blogging and you should be owning the spaces that are important to you. And that was a lot of fun, and we got some good feedback, I think, on that. And I would second what Pilot said. It was an amazing conference to go to. It was really great chatting with folks and attending sessions, and it's always great to it was great being in person with you too, Pilot. So yeah, it was a really awesome opportunity.
I loved how our team has been able to collaborate with big organizations across the open education community this year, like the Open Ed conference community, and also OE Global. And I think the Conference of the Air that coincided with the OE Global conference all the way down under in Brisbane was a great example of like riffing off a piece of innovative kind of event organizing that we pioneered in the summer with the DS106 Radio Summer Camp. And, no secret that this is my favorite project of the year, because I really loved having, over 100 people coming together all around DS106 radio campfires and kind of sharing not just the kind of shiny successes that we often, feature in our case studies and things, but also kind of what's really happening on the ground, and sort of having some really authentic conversations around, open ed tech and all the stuff that's been happening across our sector this year. So I know, Taylor, that you did so much heavy lifting, building all the infrastructure, building all the radio programming, and, making that also technically possible using the open source tools. And for me, that was like a real highlight for us to kind of try and to showcase how these tools can be used, for community building, for events, in teaching and learning, kind of seeing all these parallels.
And it was a fantastic way for us to get the whole team involved too. I think we all had a session or two within radio streams, whether it was moderating the radio sessions or just streaming music on the airwaves.
It was so fun. I found that that whole week, a really unique combination of energizing and, like, I'm gonna call it's the coziest professional development experience like because it was radio based, and it was energizing the way conferences can be, but not as tiring because of the format and the people involved, I think. And it was really cool to see what people did with that format. I've said this several times already this year, but my biggest hope, and I think we all kind of hope that, hey, doing a conference completely on the radio, I hope people take advantage of the kind of uniqueness of that format, and people absolutely did. It was really cool. And I will say, from like the technical perspective, one of my favorite things about doing this type of stuff personally for Reclaim is that we get to tinker, and we get to say, we had the Marion, you had the idea of a conference completely on the radio, and I was like, what if we release it as a podcast feed? And I think I know a tool that will work. I don't know. We're gonna absolutely try it the week of, and maybe it doesn't work, and that's fine. But we'll try and get it working. I'll do a little bit of testing, and it was great. And we had a lot of feedback on that in particular, and people said it was really nice the way we could revisit this audio stuff. It's fun when it's your own event and you can just try some things, in a lot of ways. And I would say, expanding on that for OE Global's with Alan Levine's Conference of the Air, he was also game to do that kind of same thing, and he went and tried some different things that kind of helped support him a little bit on that stuff. And I love that. I love reinventing how these online conferences and professional development experiences can go, because there's only so much Zooming we can do, really. So,
and it also created a really fun experimental approach, I think. It made people feel a lot more free with what they were doing in planning out what sort of sessions that they wanted to do, and what sort of ways that they wanted to approach what they were interested in. We had a lot of really creative sessions. I'm thinking of the Exploring a Haunted House one. The idea of, this is your audio walkthrough. We narrate as we explore this haunted house of edtech memories, I think. There was a lot of really good, playful from the chat. Like, it was a very, very playful, experimental, open-minded approach to a conference. And I think that inspired everyone who participated to be like, oh, I can't prepare a slide deck. I don't have to stick to the slide deck format. I can do whatever. And it was great.
I can only jump in, because when I start thinking about the session, I get excited. I think of, but like the Dr. Oblivion conversations that Taylor did, just epic. Your no, not kind of video game, but kind of like a game where people kind of played along, and we found ourselves with, I think, Luigi somewhere in the mountains and whatever. It was kind of this apocalypto game. But then like Brian Lim playing like a DJ and doing all the stuff, or I got to sit down and talk with Brian Mathers, and like all of these different elements. And the haunted house was just great. It was like an audio story. It was like, I think it's easy to forget because we clock so much mileage in any given year. But wow, that was a banger. Like, it was a good week of hardcore Reclaim experimenting and making things like really like moving beyond like, we've never been good at the corporate shtick, right? We've always been good about like leading with what we know. And that's a really good example of that. So yeah, a definite highlight.
I want to give a quick shout out to Jason here because, like, well, Jason is usually far too busy to kind of get away from doing this sort of stuff, but actually he's become one of the like standout DJs in our team. And that's one of the things I really enjoy. Like when I kind of come in sometimes for a day of working with you all, and there's like, oh, we're playing stuff on the radio. And I think that's something that we also need to celebrate as a team. There's so much going on behind the scenes that maybe isn't always possible to share publicly. But having that sort of, our own Reclaim radio station where a lot of that kind of bands is happening as well is just really fantastic. And I think the summer camp was a great way of highlighting that for a wider audience. But I can see a few people joining us on Discord who are going to be part of this Reclaim Rewind radio fun this month. And I think we have a few people, including Joe Murphy and Anne-Marie Scott, and also Brian Mathers, and a few others who are joining us in for this December as well to revisit some more radio fun.
Some OG DJs right there. Joe Murphy has a regular show on DS106 Radio, and Anne-Marie has been known to spin the tunes. Mathers, we haven't gotten him on yet. We will.
I think Brian is actually coming next Friday, so he's going to be joining us on Reclaim TV alongside Mary Isbell, and I think Taylor and Meredith for the case study Bonanza. So,
is he going to DJ his own session? In his unmatchable Irish accent? Is that going to happen?
I'm not sure. Knowing him, he's probably going to draw this session more than anything. But I'm aware of time, and I just wanted to make sure, Jim, that we have covered at least some of the highlights. Is there anything else we want to give a shout out to? Because I know there's been a huge number of things happening this year.
I do think that, Pilot and Taylor also, and Jason and Meredith, and I think Noah was a part of that. Like, I'm really impressed with how the workshops went this year and how they were really a distributive effort. That workshop is a really good intersection where we get to sit down with our Debate of One's Own and our managed hosting customers doing WordPress multi-site or something else, and really dig in with them and see what they need and get to a sense of what they know and kind of give people training essentially. And so I think that was probably a highlight from what I've heard from the team who was part of that, but I'll hand it over to them. What were your workshopping experiences like this year?
Sure. So yeah, the workshop this year was great, and we had, if A was well attended, which was good. We got good feedback. I would say this is the year that we've kind of locked in some of the fundamental tools we use to develop the workshop. Not so much format type things, although that to some extent too, but like we've gotten really good at using StreamYard to the best of our ability to make things easier to produce and premiere. We've gotten really good at using the custom website and TV guide layout to deliver that in a way that's, I think, not confusing and is easy to follow along with. We've gotten really good at using our event calendar to promote it and, let people sign up pretty easily, things like that. All of that stuff has paid off this year in a big way, in my view, to make the prep of it not as arduous, and it allowed us to focus, I think, more on the content than ever this time. So, and I was really excited because it wasn't Noah's first session in a workshop, but I think because you're now I think you've been in like 3 or 4 of them now, but it's always really good to one of my goals for these is to try and really represent the team as much as we can and get folks from all areas. And we're, I remember the first workshop I went to that Reclaim, when I was not working at Reclaim, that Reclaim put on, and that's how it was done. But at that time, the whole company was like 4 people, so that was easier in some ways, or maybe necessary. So I wanted to bring some of that, and we've been making an effort, and it was really awesome because Noah stepped up and delivered his session, and that's been great. And Jason really stepped up in a big way too, and led multiple different sessions. And we're just gonna, I think we're just gonna keep going with that philosophy because I think it's working well, and people bring different strengths to these sessions. So I guess Cass, you're on watch, but it's been really great to see that, and in one of the sessions, I think we were even a little bit upfront about it, one of the sessions that Jason led, where I was like, oh, I've done this one a few times, and I'm really excited to have you do it because a different angle on this, I think, may be useful for people, really, and I think that was very much the case. And we got good feedback, so I'll run with it.
Yeah, I also want to say that Jason hosted a session with me that it was Jason's first time hosting for a workshop. It was my first time being on that session, so there was not any point in that session where I could have been like, well, you've forgotten something or other, and I didn't need to because Jason had it absolutely on lock. It was great. I got to sort of sit in and have a good time and learn along with everybody else, but you had it totally covered.
Yeah, I just want to reiterate what Taylor said too about just, I think the fact that you do switch it up, because I see a lot, trainings, things like that. A lot of times people get locked into, this is my section, this is your section. But the fact that, you're all like, hey, we're just going to switch this up. I'm going to take something different this time. It really does help. It helped for me. Like when I went through those sessions and I was going back through WordPress stuff and backup stuff that I just hadn't looked at in forever. I was like, oh, I forgot how to do this, right? And I think that's one thing with support, and especially when I'm supporting, WordPress and now all these applications that I've never supported before. I find it really interesting how quickly you can forget things. Like with WordPress, right? That's the one I'm most familiar with. There's so many options. There's so many different ways to do things. That some of the things I was like, oh, I've never done it this way before, or I did it that way like 5 years ago, and I forgot I could even do it that way. So it's nice to be able to revisit things, take a look at things from a different angle, come back to things, because they're just things that you might not have done in like 6 months or a year, and you come back to it and you're like, I totally forgot I could even do this. So training, it's great for the customers, but I just think as part of the support team too, it's great to go through that process and do those trainings because it just kind of re-educates you and helps you kind of come to that with like fresh eyes again, so to speak.
Yeah, I think that's totally right. And I get that. It doesn't really matter where you are on our team. I think you're likely to learn something as part of delivering the training too. That's one of the things I always say about teaching. That's fundamentally what we're trying to do with these workshops is not spit content out at folks on screen, but we're trying to teach them about, not just how something works, but why it works that way. And you always learn through the process of teaching, is my experience. So, yeah, that was a real highlight, and I'm excited to take another crack at it when that comes up on our calendar, because I think we can just keep building on that formula.
Yeah, I'll tell you, one of the things when we first started, we called it the road show, I think. And Lauren would say, and I think you've heard this, Meredith, too, like Lauren didn't really fully understand DNS. And so Lauren's like, I want to do DNS because I want to do, like you were saying, Jason, the work to fully understand it and test it and know what it is and then go in. And it's a really cool way to think of this, to your point, Taylor. Like, teaching is also learning it, right? And I often found when I would read a book to teach it again or watch a movie to teach again, it would be like reading it for the first time and like re-experiencing it. And like, it wasn't, hopefully you don't go in with, this is what the book means, or this is what, you know, like, you should know kind of what DNS is, but you should also be flexible enough to say, like, this is what I know, this is what I'm still working through, this is what I do understand and don't. And I think that changes your relationship to the community you're working with and the people you're trying to learn with, right? Like, so yeah, I think that workshop, and you know, this is weird for me. Like, these are the first kind of 3 workshops haven't been a part of, right? And so I was really running them, you know, for years. And so it's cool to feel like it has taken on this kind of like, you do this now, or you think about this. And like, I love that. And the more people we get involved, to your point, Taylor, the better, because I think we're a small enough company and we deal with very specific clients who know us. And it's good for them to see many of us. And I think it just, you know, it kind of makes us not this faceless organization, you know, but a very real one, you know, and I think that's true.
Well, and let's be honest, that's a big advantage for us in terms of, you know, we want to get to know what our customers are doing, and that helps us support them better. If they get to know us, they have a relationship now, and we can build trust, and that helps in support. You know, that's huge. We want them to trust us, that we want to fix their problem, that we will find a solution to it, and we're along for the ride. We're not just, you know, answering an email.
Exactly.
Well, I know we are going to wind up in a minute, but I did want to give a big shout out to Pilot, because I love the gift game that the monthly roundup newsletter that we produce brings to the world. And, you know, of all the emails I get every month, and like, you know, I'm part of the team who writes the thing, but I always look forward to it, and it always makes me smile. And I always love the punnage that that Pilot brings to the newsletter. So if you aren't subscribing yet, why aren't you? That is the best gift game on the internet. So you should definitely do that. And I guess, Jim, are we going to close on blogging? I feel like this could be a running theme for every event in the series.
I just want to say, Marin, I really liked your like and subscribe. Smash that bell, hit that button. I love that. I don't know. That's a long running joke for me, but I just love it. Blog or die. Yeah. I mean, I don't want to shame anyone here, but we have a running RSS feed at Reclaim. You know, now we're talking about Reclaim, about who's been blogging. I mean, come on. How can you let me blog circles around everybody? How do you let that happen? This is personal pride, people. Marin is there. Like, Marin's doing 4 or 5 posts, podcasts. Like, Marin's doing the work. I'm doing the work, Dr. M. Baby steps. Come on, people. Blog or die.
I like that our blogging section in the roundup has been Jim and some of Marin's posts every single month for the last like 3 months.
Hey, next roundup will have a couple posts about me trying to get my blog working. So,
that's true.
the blog topic that just keeps on giving.
Blogging about blogging is a very fine tradition. So I think, Taylor, you are to be commended. Plus, lots of people in our community are following those baby steps, you know, across the different platforms. So
I started to draft a blog post after the summer camp, and that is still in my drafts. So, you know, maybe I'll have that out by the end of the year.
You should do it on the anniversary.
That'll give me a lot of time. I like that idea.
For a while, I had a whiteboard of blog ideas, or like a section. I have a whiteboard over here and a section of blog ideas, and I eventually had to declare bankruptcy and erase some of those because I moved houses and I wasn't gonna like protect the whiteboard. I mean, I could have taken a picture of it, I guess, but I was like, okay, no, we're starting clean. We're gonna start with new blog posts. So that's my New Year's resolution, I guess, is to try to blog shorter but more often.
Yeah. Almost literally a clean slate.
Yeah.
Literally, yeah. I mean, it's not slate. It's but yeah, I like that. Yeah.
See the punnage? It's still here. But I think
that's what I have. That's all I have.
The funny piece here is like, so when I worked, Justin and I, Justin actually was the CIO at UMW who made Domain at One's Own possible, which I think it's very easy to forget that Tim and I went to Justin with Martha and the whole team, and we were like, can we do this thing? And he's like, why not? And, you know, that's not that often you get that kind of uptake, and what kind of came after it was pretty remarkable. But, you know, when I would go in with that team at the Division of Teaching and Learning Technologies at University of Mary Washington, which is where a lot of the early WordPress worked with a lot of great people, taught some great people, many of whom came into the organization or went on, met folks like Tim. But I used to go in there every morning, and I would be up to like 4 a.m. blogging. I was like on a sick manic tear for like 10 years. And so I would come in and I'd be like, are you people blogging? Like every day. And they just hated me. And it was the best. So I love talking smack around blogging probably more than most things. Like if I can like get someone in a corner and be like, have you blogged yet? Like, are you blogging? Like, what's your blog scenario? I will. That's it.
Okay, well, should we leave it there, because that sounds like the perfect note to leave a festive roundup.
We made Reclaim look so good, but then it started to implode on itself if I talked about blogging.
It's the perfect motivation to keep the blog going.
Right, absolutely. And I was going to say, I think everybody who's watching and listening to this has your contact details, Jim. So please do reach out to Jim for that kind of advice. But I just wanted to say a huge thank you to everybody here for being game to kind of join us live on Reclaim TV, and I think also on the radio. We were trying to crosscast, but if not, then we'll post a recording and just kick us off here with the Reclaim Rewind series of events. Do tune back in next Friday for the case study bonanza, where you're hearing from other people, not just ourselves. And Jim, do you still have the slide deck to show us the holiday special? Because there is some karaoke fun to be had later this month. And so we'll put the details up on the screen if we can find them, but also just go back on the events website and find them there. So you can join us for our holiday special on December 20th. So yeah, everybody, thank you so much again for joining us, and hopefully we'll see you for our next Reclaim Rewind event. Oh, awesome. Thanks, Jim. That's amazing. That's the holiday special. So do join us on December 20th for the one and only radio special on DS106 Radio.
Bye, everybody.
For life. For life.